Welcome to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. I'm your host, Greg Banks. Thanks for coming along with me today. $50. That's what it costs a military family to spend an entire weekend at a fully accessible camp, lodging, meals, and every activity included. My guest today is Kate Lipton, recreational therapist, yoga instructor, and personal trainer, Camp Twin Lakes, just east of Atlanta, where she has served since 2009. She also works with the Share Military Initiative at Shepherd Center, helping veterans recover from traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, and spinal cord injuries. In this conversation, we get practical about how Family Warrior Weekends work, who qualifies, any veteran family nationwide can apply, what Share's rehab program actually provides, and how volunteers and donors can get involved. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. I am extremely excited to have on the show today somebody that works practically in my backyard. I was really surprised to find out about this. Kate Lipton. Kate, good to have you here today.
Great to be here, Greg.
I think we're coming up on the next Vetlanta Quarterly Summit, and I haven't finished following up on all my guests from the last one, so I'm going to have to get busy here to catch up with you guys. Kate, I'm so glad to have you here. This was truly a remarkable surprise for me, not just that you were more or less in my backyard where you guys operate, but what you do. Kate is a recreational therapist, yoga instructor, personal trainer with Camp Twin Lakes, east of Atlanta. Been there since 2009. Wears a lot of hats, also with the Share Shepherd Center Military Initiative. Do a variety of things at that camp, and I will certainly sell them short if I try to list them off. So we'll let you introduce yourself. But yeah, there'll be links in the show notes to both Kate and Camp Twin Lakes. This is something you really need to look into, people, particularly if you're in Atlanta or around this area. There's some really unique things going on here. We'll let Kate set them up. Kate, why don't you give us a little bit of background on your own ramp into Camp Twin Lakes and what all it is you guys do there?
Yeah, I started with Camp Twin Lakes in 2009, and we were pretty small at that point, only had one campus in Rutledge, Georgia, which is our flagship site. And I worked with kids with spina bifida and their kind of introduction to camp, and they came typically through Children's Hospital of Atlanta. And now, 17 years later, Children's Hospital has a plethora of camps that they offer through Camp Twin Lakes where they get introduced to different camp programs. And I think Children's Hospital has about 10 or 11 camp programs that come out of there. And yeah, we just grew exponentially in the last 15 years where we now have 3 sites that we operate full-time year-round. During the summer, it's kids with varying chronic illnesses, physical disabilities, and life challenges. And throughout the year, there are family weekends, there are weekend programs, Camp Sunshine runs a teen camp and a siblings program. So we work full year round to provide accessible camping programs for both that life challenge, that physical challenge, and on the illness side of it too. So the biggest difference in Camp Twin Lakes for any other type of camp program is that the partners like Children's Hospital or American Camp Association or any other outside organization that has an expertise in the population they're serving. Also, for instance, the foster care program, we have a camp for kids who are joined at camp for 1 week of the summer with their siblings, and they're not in the same foster home. So the experts of those populations, whether it's people in the medical field, doctors, nurses, et cetera, whether it's the mental health field, social workers, psychologists, whatever the need is for that population, they all come to camp. And so our site provides the meal service, all the maintenance, the facilities, the lodging, and all the activities and the staff to run all of that. So we have lifeguards, we have people experience in the outdoor adventure side of different ropes course and climbing walls and zip lines and all that. And we do all kinds of special dietary needs for different populations as well. We serve celiac, we serve Crohn's colitis. So that's kind of the overall picture, and Camp Twin Lakes has been around since 1993. So I operate out of the Winder location, which is inside Fort Youngro State Park.
Remarkable things there, and I do not in any way want to undersell any other camp. There are plenty of camps out there. I just had Lacey Gano on from Camp Southern Ground. Again, different mission, different target audience. 2 things. One, living in Atlanta, my youngest child had an issue when he was born, and we had to deal with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Atlanta Children's Ortho. And we went back every week to have issues dealt with. And you go back every week and you see the same people. These people are not coming on the same schedule you're on. They're still there. So if you're a parent that's faced a child who had a chronic illness or whatever, like what it takes to really service not just the patient, but the family of that patient, God, there's an endless list of things. So to know that you guys are not just trying to go at the person who has whatever the chronic issue is, but you're also servicing that family. Man, sometimes it's just relief. Sometimes it's just a day off. Sometimes it's finding out about something you couldn't find on Google that's been proven. And one thing I've tried to get my wife to leave Atlanta several times, but one thing that always kept us here is, man, if you've got a kid or need some expert medical care, we are really, really blessed in Atlanta to have some remarkable children's hospitals, but hospitals in general, just some really, really good medical care here in Atlanta. So great introduction. The other is I had not thought about it in our intro conversation, but you just talked about the 3 campuses. There are things like with a disabled veteran, somebody who's an amputee or something like that. You guys have some very unique stuff in like the rope courses and whatnot. And setting that up at multiple locations probably doesn't make sense, but wherever you do set it up may inhibit another type of camp from needing to happen. So it allows you to be very versatile in what you offer and where you offer it, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, yes and no. Like all 3 sites have accessible lake docks. So if, people want to use kayaks or paddle boats or canoes or whatever, and they have physical challenges, whether they use a wheelchair or they have a prosthetic or severe arthritis or injuries from jumping from airplanes and helicopters, we can provide an accessible dock where they can sit down and slide down into the boat. The same thing with horseback riding. All sites have the accessible ramp to help getting onto a horse. I think also all 3 sites have a hydraulic system on the zip line as well. So
Wow. Okay.
for
Cool.
somebody that can't climb up the pole to get to the top platform to then get hooked up to the wire, etc., we have it on a hydraulic so the zip line will lower and you get hooked up from the seat that you're in or a bench or whatnot, then get raised back up and
Yeah.
get to the
I just got to
beginning
get
of
there
it
and see
get
this
to
in
zip.
person. This is incredible to
Yeah.
hear about. I'd love to see
Yeah.
it.
So
Good deal.
lots of, and
Yeah.
even archery is accessible and there's a bunch of different opportunities. So at this point, we help the partner and the population kind of get to a specific site, and that will be more accommodating for what they need or what they're looking
Okay.
for. Like Rutledge, the main site, that's the site for Camp Sunshine, Camp Kudzu, because they have the biggest medical lodge. And so the kids that are at Camp Sunshine can receive chemotherapy and infusions and any kind of medical care they need that doesn't interfere with their experience with camp while they're at camp, because all the medical staff is there. Same thing with kudzu and type 1 diabetes. So they get their treatment. And a lot of kids become more independent when they're at camp in that way, because they're now more responsible for their sugar checks, or kids in wheelchairs with spina bifida learning how to catheterize by themselves because they see their peers do it and they get help. So there's a lot more independence that's gained. But we have a camp for kids with tracheostomies. So they have a open trach in their throat for breathing, and they can still do zip line. They can still do the lake. I mean,
Yeah.
and they have
That's
staff
cool.
to accommodate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about your background coming into this. Obviously, there's probably not a college program that prepares you to do what it is that Kate does. So you've got a wide verse of background that brought you here. Why don't you tell a bit about your story and how you come to be here?
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with just being in the right time and the right place and opportunity. And I studied recreation therapy in college, and it was just something that really clicked for me. And so I'm very much an experiential learner. And so that kind of drove that path in a way. And I did my internship at the VA in San Diego in spinal cord injury and spent a fair amount of time out there. So learned a lot about the adaptations of varying activities, sports, whether it was skiing or archery or boating or weightlifting. We did a lot of stuff with veterans, and it was just post 9/11. At that time, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, just a lot of different exposure to the various opportunities. And when I moved back to Atlanta, I got into kind of the same track that I really wanted to work in that arena with adapted sports. And so I did some work with Blaze Sports. I did some work inside just physical rehab in general, learning about what it takes to rehab through a hip replacement or a back surgery and stuff. And because it all comes together at some point, just in the sense of like recreation as therapy, recreation to provide an opportunity to either give you a quality of life or enhance quality of life. And that became my overall mission in a way. So when the opportunity to start working with Camp Twin Lakes opened up in 2009, I was thrilled to be able to be involved in the camp world and met some really great people and got a lot of great mentors. And in April of 2010, Camp Twin Lakes was wanting to venture into working with military families. And I had some previous experience after the VA as well. So they asked me if I was interested in running camp programs for military families. And at the time, the Army was providing summer camps and family programs called Operation Military Kids and Strong Bonds for the families. And there just wasn't enough time for them to provide enough resources to serve the amount of families that were in need. And so we had meetings with several bases and talked to chaplains, just what the outreach looked like and what the need was out there. And they were very encouraging and welcoming to jump into that space with the resources we could provide in that way. We can kind of dictate what kind of families can come to our programs. And to be blunt, the chaplain who I spoke with at one of the bases at the Army, that I think it was Fort Benning maybe, and that they said it'd be great because we only provide programs for married couples that are male-female marriages. We don't provide same-sex programs, and we don't allow it. Ours are all faith-based, not for single parents, not, or if families who don't have kids need their extended family or whoever's their support, so we can kind of support their support network in an all-encompassing program.
Yeah, you
So
weren't
that was a
restrictive when you
big,
allowed somebody to sign up to go serve. So why would we restrict the care that's being offered to them when they need it on the way out? That's incredible.
yeah,
Good to hear. Good to
yeah.
hear.
And the chaplains then came to our program just to volunteer, as
Wow.
well. So
Good.
yeah.
Good.
And the fact that a lot of these families, just like any other family, may have a child with special needs, a child on the autism spectrum or using a wheelchair, or an adult child who's not verbal and needs some extra care. And so we could fill that gap. So that's how we got there. And then the very short version of being a personal trainer is when I moved back to Atlanta, it just took me a little while to find more of a full-time job. So I was doing PRN and different stuff. And somebody said, you just get your personal training certification. And so it helps supplement. And it was something that I was interested in. And then that motivated me also to look into yoga training. And I've done it so many times at camp, and it's a huge benefit to anybody that we can serve. So
yeah, the body's an amazing thing. I've had several friends that have wound up going through Shepherd. Shepherd is a really unique organization here in Atlanta. In fact, I think you had told me in some background stuff, it's one of only 2 in the country that offers some of the stuff that it can offer. But
I think 5, but I can't remember. Yeah.
The spinal cord injury and that and brain, those 2 things, they can predict things, but there's really no knowing how the body's going to respond to things or when. But to your point, when it does settle, and even before then, like certain types of rehab, like there's probably certain types of rehab you don't do until some stabilization has occurred in whatever the injury was. But once it does, the sooner you start that stuff, you can get nerves to refire and your body can adapt and learn new things that it didn't do before. So I think like a lot of things you speak to in chronic illness and whatever else, having that unique approach to it. We're going to get to this word wellness in a minute. I hear this word all over the place. I see it on signs and whatnot. My old chiropractor, she went by that title as a wellness center. That probably means a lot of things to a lot of people, but from where you sit and what you do and the kind of people you see, can you define that word for our audience just so we kind of know what we're speaking to? Because again, I think you guys have a very broad spectrum of attack that any one of them somebody could dedicate all their time to. The fact that y'all go at so many different things is really amazing.
Yeah. So my personal definition is going to be different than Shepherd Center or even Camp Twin Lakes, but to try to summarize, it's a whole mind body towards feeling good, I guess is the shortest way to put it. There is no difference between the mental health and the physical health. They are completely the same. They're intertwined. If you are not feeling in pain, then you feel good. If you're not feeling depressed, then you feel good. Or something bad didn't happen, you're not grieving, you feel good. And also, like, in that way, if somebody's feeling anxious or sad or angry, etc., physically things change too.
Right.
Pain can increase, certainly stress levels can increase, breathing changes. So the whole mind-body connection in that way deals with both. And for me personally, that includes sleep, that includes diet, that includes hydration, that includes strength, that includes the outdoor time, the time with loved ones, because don't forever forget that social aspect and that community aspect, one of the most important, and the kind of yoga side of deep breathing and the calm side of treating your body, of doing the deep stretches and going through different things like that. So whether it's meditation, yoga, etc. So those kind of things encompass whole body wellness for me. Yeah. In healthcare, it's very different, obviously. Like at Shepherd Center, it'd be considered like looking at the whole person, looking at their individual goals, looking at what their lifestyle was before and what they want to return to, and looking at certainly their support network and how to care for themselves post-injury, especially. In the Camp Twin Lakes side, the wellness looks at serving each member of the family, if it's a family program, especially serving each member of the family individually and together as a family. So the fact that we have like family style meals and buffet and all that, where people kind of have to interact and be engaged and clean up together and go to different activities together and get that time together and apart and get support with volunteers and have things provided for them. So it's taking that stress away from them to plan every detail of fun for the weekend, because we all know like family trips are not really vacations.
Yeah.
And so can we make some of this restorative for
Sure.
them to feel a little refreshed and go back home after? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the veteran side of this in a moment. We've been talking about physical and chronic disabilities up until this point, but there's so many things in doing some of these episodes of people I'm talking to about whether it's PTSD or suicide ideation or whatever those things are. A lot of this, I would say, starts from, but the fact people can't communicate about it, even within their family. Like you got a husband who can't tell their wife what I need or what I care. They're just carrying this. They feel like a burden they don't share. And that in and of itself creates a different problem, a different anxiety. And the physiological things you're talking about is like this snowball just keeps getting bigger. And in some ways, by not communicating, by not bringing your spouse or your children or whoever these other extended family caretakers might be into that conversation, you're delaying your own healing, because the answer to some of the resources you need are there. But this psychological side of, I don't want to burden them, is keeping you from getting that. I love the idea that you're bringing the family in. To your point, I may have a disabled veteran come in and find out they got a special needs kid, and you wind up getting a 2-for-1 that you can help both of them. And in that, create more closeness in that struggle and the way out, the way to healing and stuff like that. This is just, I can't imagine the impact you're having. This is just a short span of time by how you go about this. Just really, really incredible. Let's move towards the veteran side. And I want to kind of start with that by talking about Shepherd in particular, because I know, as you were telling me how Shepherd in particular got involved, how Share started and how that impacts you guys was a really remarkable thing. Tell us a little bit about Shepherd, what it is they offered, and how some of those things changed, how they're involved with you guys.
So I really started delving in and working with Shepherd in 2017. Share Military Initiative started in 2008. And it was, again, like veterans just weren't being cared for enough with all the complex challenges that they were having coming back, especially from Iraq, Afghanistan injuries and the big influx of the roadside bombs and RPGs and stuff that were causing these specific type of traumatic brain injuries, these concussive injuries. And then, of course, the different traumas that came out of it, including post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic stress disorder. And so Bernie Marcus saw that as a huge need and approached the Shepherd family and said, what if we start a clinic for mild TBI treating veterans? And sure enough, they made it happen pretty quickly. They've always had a recreation therapist in the program as a huge component of returning home. And what Share does is it's a multifaceted, complex rehabilitation program, just like the rest of Shepherd Center. So Shepherd Center has an inpatient spinal cord injury and a day program spinal cord injury. They have an inpatient brain injury program. They have a day brain injury program called Pathways. And so this is kind of adjacent to Pathways, but it's specifically working with veterans and first responders because of the mental health component that comes in with how the trauma and brain injury overlap, because there is so many overlapping symptoms that can be both. Can be either or both brain injury, post-traumatic stress. So that's what Share is really good at. And so we have physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, behavioral health, vocational rehabilitation, recreation therapy, as I mentioned. We have a transition support person who this is all of Shepherd also, but specific to Share, once a person graduates the program, then that transition support person helps follow them for at least a year in their community. And if they need to go to doctor's appointments or if they need help with resources and getting in to different programs, no matter what it is, that transition person helps them. But we all work as a team throughout the program, and the case manager is our lead person to help work with each client get through this treatment. And of course, we have neurologists who head up the medical side and nurses as well. So the focus is on helping the person learn the techniques to help them be functioning at home again. So they may be working and so they're going back to work. They may still be active duty and so they're figuring out whether they're active duty, they're med boarding or they're retiring, whatnot. They may have, gotten out of the military 15 years ago and they finally kind of said, I'm at my wit's end and I don't know if there's anywhere else I can go. They come and get evaluated and then they learn whether it's emotional regulation, memory strategies, finding out the leisure that really serves them and helps them find that joy and flow state and happiness. And they work with occupational therapy for various reasons. A big component is the vestibular stuff that PT, and work very closely with all the vestibular sensory stuff through vision, through hearing, through balance. Speech therapy we're all very equally important, right? And that's the kind of the specialty that 𝗪𝗲 does. And speech therapy works on memory and recall and strategies for life as well as coping. And recreation therapy has a piece in every little discipline and carrying over in. So whether it's adapted golf, fishing, running, being an active member of the family and being able to engage with the kids and going to the aquarium or the zoo or learning different games, we kind of like have our hands in everything in that way. So the share side of things, and when I work there, and I'm now part-time, that is specific. They come up with their goals with us and they figure out what's most important, that what they haven't been able to do, how they want to get back to doing that. So, it can be communication based. Like I said, it can be family and community based. It could be the isolation pace where we're working on socialization with them and working on getting engaged with their friends and family and getting out of the house.
Yeah, a million thoughts come to mind here, but I think the short of it is there is life after these injuries and these setbacks. But in a lot of ways, you determine where that finish line is, right? A lot of times, it's multiple years, to your point, even over a decade before people start dealing with some of these things, much less finish. So it's important to stay connected to them. I love that long-term plan you're talking about, because what looks like the finish line today winds up being the foundation for the next thing you start. And I'm actually working to there's an organization called 𝗓𝗏, which does obstacle course races for paraplegics and things like that. They're injured in the military, and they have zero suicides when people get involved with their program, because it's now they could see a life of activity and fun and community post injury. And now there may not be any two people at the same level of whatever that looks like, but it's community nonetheless. And it creates that hope again. And that's what I love. I think the underlying tone here is you've got people down a million different roads who probably feel hopeless and they don't feel like they have community. And coming through Camp Twin Lakes, these programs are addressed to restore hope, restore community, and that really sets them up for a road of success that you can't put that on a brochure, because you can't begin to encapsulate what that means to people who have been in hopelessness for so long.
That is,
wow.
And the caveat to that is I just had a camp in February, a 3-day weekend program, and families that have been coming for years, or first-time families, both. On the same token, we have a closing ceremony, and I heard multiple times through different veterans, this place is my lifeline. That when I feel like the world is closing in on me, that I just get through the day. Some of these people are peer support and they work with other veterans and have these mentor roles, and it doesn't matter. Some people just are trying to make the day-to-day with their family because it's a blended family. It's single parents, it's all the above. And even though families come back time after time, each time they come, they're different. Who knows what particular situation they have had to deal with, or problems in their marriage, or whatever. We don't do marriage counseling. We don't do counseling at all. We don't do group therapy. We provide community and a space. We do have a licensed counselor there for as needed things, because there is suicidal ideation, because there are kids with multiple challenges as well, just from being in a military family, or have their own trauma, so it's just safe to have that extra person there who has this expertise in trauma. But this closing ceremony, we had 20 families there, and probably 15 of them said, this place saved my life. And everything that Camp Twin Lakes does, providing camps for kids with spina bifida who don't have a friend network at home because none of their friends at home has spina bifida. So when they go to the nurse's station to use the bathroom, it's like they're being treated because they're special
Yeah.
for medical needs and for their own embarrassment, possibly. But these families that come to camp, whether it's veteran families, whether it's kids with cancer, doesn't matter. They come to our program because they're in their own community. That's their normal.
Right. Right.
So the stigma of being a veteran PTSD and isolating and being the scary person or worrying about the outburst or all the triggers or whatever, they can talk about. Like, I bring it up
Right.
usually just to make it like it's out there,
Break the
you
ice. Yeah.
know, and exactly. And so the same thing with every other camp, that what these kids or families are dealing with, that is normal,
Yeah.
you know, or common or whatever you want to call it. But with our Family Warrior Weekends, there's been different talks throughout the weekend that just happened. And, you know, our last Svetlana, we know Kevin hates the word organically, but
Yeah.
it always comes up organically, that it can be intimacy stuff. It can be sex addiction, porn addiction. It can be just straight suicidal ideation. It can be the different dissociative episodes that people have when they flash back because there's a trigger, and there's no such
Right.
thing as a trigger-free environment
Right.
ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for us to try to minimize triggers, yeah, we're at camp, we're in nature, but if a golf cart backfires, that's not something we can control. If somebody comes up behind without announcing themselves, that's not necessarily something we can control. So whatever it is, we do say that there's no such thing as a trigger-free environment. So what we hope to do is provide a space that you can feel safe. And if you get triggered, then you can come and talk to us so we can
Right.
help you through that.
Right.
I love being able to work at both because it's seeing the nitty gritty of the day-to-day treatment at Share, and it's being able to help translate that in the community as
Yeah.
well. And so, you
Which are
know,
two
and
separate things, but you would be surprised how one
yeah.
impacts the other, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And also how much people don't consider that it's the veteran for our programs, it's the veteran that has the challenge, but it's the entire family. It's that ripple effect. The entire family and their community is affected, greatly affected. So whether it's secondary PTSD, whether it's certain triggers or behaviors, or you know, for children, challenges and acting out, whatever it is, you know, the whole family is impacted one way or
For sure.
another. And so being able to recognize that, and for the veterans to also see, because obviously there's can be guilt associated with what they deal with, and then passing that on to the other members of their family, that they can see they're not alone, that other families have been dealing with this in various ways, and the spouses and the teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got an episode that's about to release, and he was talking about how people don't realize that a veteran they can go from perfectly okay to spiraling to ideation in under an
Yeah.
hour. Like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even necessarily have to do with the trigger, just the environment, whatever that might look like. And I don't think, I think that movie American Sniper with Chris Kyle, they did such a great job of kind of showing how he's sitting out at the barbecue, drinking a beer, watching people play. And this dog started kind of being aggressive and how it was reacting to a kid. And it was enough to take him back to dogs in combat. Like whatever it is that associates you to be into a war zone, it doesn't matter what it is that gets you there. It's realizing you're there and having a way
Yeah,
out.
the Hurt
And
Locker, the Hurt Locker too kind of laid that out very well. Yeah.
yeah, great movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
Let's move over to Family Warrior Weekend. Obviously, we want to talk about programs that are making a difference for vets, and there's just layer upon layer, but whether it be homelessness or finding careers or financial. Like Lord knows, the military is really great at taking people, just average people, and making them incredible to go be lethal in doing what they have to do. But on the backside, there's so many things for them transitioning back to civilian life, not just a civilian job. I love how you guys set this up. Let's go ahead and start peel back what Warrior Weekend is, what leads up to it. How does somebody find about getting involved? I'm sure there's limits on how many people you can do in a camp. How often do you do them? Do the brochure.
Yeah, sure. Right now we operate twice a year. We hope to get back up to more like 4 times a year, but funding and nonprofits is always a challenge. And we take about 20 families or so each weekend. The families can have a single parent, a 2-parent home. It can be a close friend that comes. That's a good support with that family. We've had parents of the families come. We've had aunts and uncles come who've also served. So we've had all areas of what a family looks like, depending on each person, and kids of all ages. So we're able to support having babies. We've had kids there as young as 4 weeks old into kids that are adults. When I
Those
was
are different
doing
sounds
summer
at camp, right?
They are. They
Yeah.
are. Yeah. And we have volunteers who support our families throughout the whole weekend. So we have pockets where it's just adult time and kids are separate and they have their time too. And so we have volunteers for that under 5 age range and babies if we're in diapers and whatnot. We have volunteers that are fully equipped and have a lot of experience. I mentioned this at Atlanta. They're all background check, reference check. And we have that rule of 3 that no one can ever be alone, including myself. Like, doesn't matter who you are, you're an adult coming at camp, a staff, a volunteer, whatnot. We're never alone with kids that are under the age of 18. It's very important to us to keep that protection for the kids especially. So that's kind of the military family. We don't care when you served. We do give priority to those who have served in combat and those who endured trauma. And that includes all women veterans as well, because women veterans are a very underserved population. And so what we can provide, a lot single parents, again, those kid programs. So when you're a parent 24/7, you need a break. And that's okay to say. That's okay to need that. And sometimes those breaks, the parents are so exhausted and they have nothing left to give. So they are able to connect with other adults, take an extra long nap, whatever they need. And the kids also get what they need. They get adults that are attentive to them. They get peers who want to play with them and learn about them. And, just this amazing campgrounds where they can run around and scream and play and not worry about their parents' triggers,
And do things
to
they
have
might
that
not
freedom.
ever otherwise get a chance to do. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least not very often.
Yeah.
And so everybody checks in on Friday. We have dinner, we have an opening ceremonies, and everybody sets their goals or intentions for the weekend when we do that opening ceremonies. And then we do some breakout sessions. So right there, kind of getting the parents away from the kids if they choose. There's nothing mandatory about what we do, but it gives the male veterans a place to in a space to talk and connect. Female veterans also space and place to talk. Spouses and teenagers, we separate those 4 groups, and then the younger kids just controlled chaos, block the exits,
Let kids be kids.
and
Yeah.
let kids be kids, let them go
Mhm.
wild and let them have fun. And then Saturday we all group together and all the meals are together, and families a lot of times intertwine with other families. And if they didn't know other families at the beginning of the weekend, then they will be blended throughout the weekend. And same thing with kids. A lot of times you see these kids like, I don't want to sit with my family, I want to sit with my new friends. So that's a huge sign of success for us as well. And they get to do a lot of family programs, like I mentioned, horseback riding, climbing wall, anything boating, fishing. We do a bunch of different crafts. Sometimes we do candle making or outdoor cooking. There's little hiking trails around. I know I'm missing stuff, but I mean, it's a camp program and it's on a lake and it's, again, everything's accessible. Boating, fishing, archery, climbing. For
Zip
those who are
lining.
12 and up,
Yeah.
zip lining,
Yeah.
giant swing, and some of the other individual high ropes. And then after lunch, we do those breakout sessions again, where we just have the adults and have the kids in their age groups. And so like for the teenagers, one of their activities may be axe throwing, or picking an individual ropes that they want to challenge themselves doing. And the adults we lead, and we just, again, there's what happens with the organic conversations and what kind of comes up. And we feel that out through the beginning of the weekend and kind of seeing, are there in particular things that people are saying that they need or that they want. And sometimes it's okay, we want to address certain things. And other times it just sounds like there's a lot of heaviness going on. And let's just keep it as light as possible and make it a ton of fun and get people laughing and interacting. And then they leave there feeling that way. And then they're refreshed and going back to their kids and they want to play with them and they want to engage because they had that time.
I didn't think about this before, but I think to your point, no 2 camps can be the same because the things that people need when they show up are going to be different, maybe even 2 days in a row, but certainly one camp to the next is the problems that the families are bringing to the table are different. Therefore, what you do for them needs to be what they need, not just some structured agenda of here's our calendar of events, be on time, right? That doesn't work for this group. So good to hear. Good to hear. And if you haven't swung into a lake in Georgia in the summertime, I don't know if you've had your childhood, right? There's hardly anything better. And I know the Rutledge area very well. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Even not having seen the camp, I know the area well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up volunteers. I always want to look when we find VSOs. You mentioned nonprofits and how hard they are, this economy we're in, all kinds of challenges to this. I'm not saying every person should, but every person probably could volunteer in one way or the other. And if this is not the right situation, then go find one. If there's 40,000 VSOs, I guarantee you there's one in a city near you. Find a way, show up, pack a notebook. If you don't want to be in the hard stuff, go pack a notebook, make a bed. Like, you could do things and
Right.
not even be seen, but nonetheless
Right.
be useful. So the expert you guys bring in to bring the most attentive and most impactful care to these people, let them focus on what they need, and you can find 1,000 ways to help out. So, and you mentioned for them to contact you, so I'll have your email in the show notes. That's where
Yeah.
volunteers can come if they want
Yeah.
to get involved.
Right. We take volunteers that are over 18 years old. Like I said, we do a background check. We do an online training for abuse prevention. So not only does it help the volunteer look out if a child is experiencing any kind of abuse outside of camp, but also be aware of the surroundings. Well, like I said, I do reference checks, and then we do a whole orientation when people come to camp. And a lot of my volunteers have been coming for years because
Yeah,
this is what they love, and the families come back,
sure.
and they handpick their volunteers
Yeah,
to be with them and help them. And but the volunteers, for our camp, they're like camp counselors, and they help guide the families around when there's family time, and then they do the kids programming when it's kids only time. For summer camp, they're mostly camp counselors. If they have any kind of medical background, nurses, paramedics and all that kind of stuff, they can be on the medical side. We certainly have help with logistical stuff too, especially in summer camp side. And throughout the year, we have several special events. Our big one is a bike ride in October called 𝒑𝒓𝒐𝗲 and we have a very small full-time staff at Camp Twin Lakes. I think there's like 40. And so the 𝒑𝒓𝒐𝗲 is, there's rest stops, there's setup, there's welcome and check-in, there's food service, there's setup the whole route, there's takedown of the whole route, and there's the medical tent. We also need like bike shops to come and volunteer for mechanical stuff and supporting changing flat tires or whatever it is. And we need roadside service for people just to, like, I usually do the ride, then drive around in my car to see if anybody needs to be picked up and, get calls and stuff like that. So like you said, there's facing or camper facing stuff. And then there's also like the back of the house
right.
kind of things that, that we always need. So we have several special events, but those are the big ones that we always could help
Awesome.
with volunteers.
So I know you're located east of Atlanta, but I know you also get people from outside of Atlanta. So I just want to be really clear about who qualifies for
Yeah,
these programs. Nationwide, anybody can come to this. There's an approval
that is
process,
correct.
but
That
it's
is
open to
correct.
anybody in the nation, right?
That is correct. We've had people drive down that were stationed in Georgia. They got out, they moved home to New York. They have driven down from New York for our programs. We used to have a camper for summer camp from Connecticut, drive down from there. We've had Carolinas, north and south, people come in from Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Florida, Texas. We've had somebody come from Miami a couple of times as
That's a
well for the
long
camp
drive.
program because I
Yeah.
still believe that this is the only one in the country that does what we do, specifically the way that we do it. So there's other family programs out there, and certainly not
Yeah.
to knock any, everybody's got
Sure.
their niche.
Yeah.
So this is our niche, and this is why it works, why there's always a wait list. And the way we filter is, like I mentioned, we give priority to combat and trauma experience, all women veterans. And if I have new families wanting to come in, then I'll have return families be secondary to those new families. So,
Yeah.
but it's always helpful to have return families there because they help kind of set the precedence of this is a safe place, this is comfortable, they're welcoming in that way. So,
Good to know. Good to know. And I got to throw this out there. If you don't have somebody in your family that's got a chronic illness or a veteran, you're not close to this, then you know somebody who is. Like, it's just in this. I'm growing up. I hardly knew anybody who seemed to have chronic issues. Maybe I was just an ignorant kid who didn't pay attention, but it just didn't seem prevalent. But now it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. And if you know somebody like that, you know what it looks like when they find relief of any kind. So to be in a situation where you can watch this play out, there's a guy who wrote a song about 𝒑𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒃, the founder of Chick-fil-A. And he said, every time he saw Truett, he said, how you doing, Truett? He says, man, I'm tired, but it's a
yeah,
good tired, right? He
yeah.
never got tired of doing good things and helping people out. And I see people like you that just wring yourself out. But when you lay down, it's like you're exhausted, have nothing else to give because I gave everything I could because it's worth
And
it.
that's the goal. That's
Yeah.
always the goal. Because
Yeah.
for me, why else am I doing this?
Yeah. Not for the money,
Amen.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
No, sir. If they came in tandem, I would not be opposed to that. But and I don't need affirmation. And at the same time, it does fuel me that when we had that closing ceremony in February, because in November it seemed like everybody was doing great. And so then there can be times in the back of your head like, okay, well, things are going really well. And like, are there families still out there that still need us? And then February came around and holy crap, it was a lot of heaviness. And I don't ever say that to shy away from it. I say that as like, this is still a need. We still need to be out there promoting what we do for $50 for an entire weekend for the family that provides lodging, all the activities, all the meals. The only thing we can't provide is transportation to and from camp. But once you get there, we have everything, and we will do everything from unpack your bags from the time you arrive and get you settled in your cabin to then help you get your bags packed in your car at the very end of it. But people saying that this place is sometimes it's just that twice a year where they get that joy, where they get to come to camp. And now I feel part of my responsibility is, thank you for having me on this podcast, being able to get that out there more, is to say that what else can we do? And you being able to do all these other podcasts to show what else is out there, that, we can't be in an echo chamber and in a silo. We need all the other VSOs.
Right.
So that these other organizations, none of us operate independently in that way. And so one of the things that we do at camp is because, there's so many places to find the resources out there. There's the Warrior Alliance, there's a National Resource Directory, there's the Atlanta, there's various places to find all these resources. However, sometimes when you look at it that way, it's like, you just go down this rabbit hole. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's all virtual. So
Yeah.
you don't know who to trust. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come in. So we have a group with the adults and we talk about resources, and I talk about the ones that we've had particular personal experience. And then I let the other families in the group give their feedback of what they've experienced and the things that have worked for them. So there's that resource sharing and a warm handoff at the same time.
Right.
That is also hugely that I've heard, like, maybe I should stop doing that because there are all these resources out there, but they're still getting a ton from that.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember life before Google, before you could just ask any question and have 2 billion results back. But not, like, now it doesn't feel like a good thing. Like, okay, now there's 40,000. Now what do I do? Right. There's ones in Atlanta. No, okay. Now there's 600. Now what do I do? So yeah, that's actually exactly why we started out doing this. Was I'm not here to knock any resource out there. To your point, to each their own. Everybody's got their lane and they're doing all they can within it. Kudos to them. But what I do want to know
because
is,
none of us can heal one person or their family alone, or help them heal, because it's up to them. But they made a step of coming to us, wherever us is, whether it's Share, whether it's Southern Ground, it doesn't matter. They made that step, and so now can we help them get to the next one?
Well, and to your point, like, you can do all you can do and get this person to a perfect state, but 20 years from now, right, maybe their parents are the primary caretaker, and all of a sudden their parents can't do it anymore. So they were doing everything as directed, and everything was going fine, except they don't have all the benefits to cover hiring one when their parents can no longer do it. I've got a friend going through that right now. He's been in a wheelchair for 24 years, and his parents just can't do it anymore. And because of the games between Medicare, like, he technically could have worked for a lot of years, but if he made over $800 a month, he would lose his benefits. $800 a month. It's not even a car note for like a wheelchair accessible van. So yeah, crazy. I want to go back to something you said, because I think I had neglected to put it on my list of questions. You said $50 for a family of 4 to go to Chick-fil-A. Good luck doing that for $50. You just mentioned an entire family coming to a camp for all the things you just described that go on for $50 per family.
Yeah. I mean, that's barring the funding that we have, of course.
I understand.
And if they want to give more, they're welcome to give more.
Right.
But that's the required fee, and that helps them have some skin in the game as well. It's great to offer things at no cost. And then when you have to cancel, it's, I don't have to pay anything anyways. We've really seen that on both sides. So when we say something like $50 that is reasonable and is usually doable, then we have people show up or tell us enough time ahead that they can't show up, because they also still need that $50. It's not something they can throw away.
And to be really clear, because I've heard different things from around the country, they have to get to you. That they're responsible for getting to you, but $50 is what happened once they walk on your front doorstep, right? So we'll be clear, because some of them pay for travel, stuff like that. I just want to be really clear on what's included here. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We're not able to cover any travel, but everything that they get when they're at camp is
Deal.
on us. Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
deal.
And we've had families that will say, we want to give an extra $50 to sponsor another family, which is extremely generous and very supportive of their community.
Yeah. So if a family comes who can't come up with $50, but somebody's done that, will that allow that? Okay, you said $50 puts their skin in the game if they don't have it, but if somebody else done it on their behalf, that qualifies them to be able to do it if
Yeah.
somebody's given. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Like the Wellness Armory is one of the organizations I met at
Hmm.
Atlanta, and we're
Yeah,
working together for some of the families they work with to come to camp. And, the small organization that they are and all the hard work that they do, they want to support these families coming. So they're sponsoring that. So we've had that where certain organizations will sponsor, and there's way around different things. Obviously, we can't have every family
sure.
not pay, but at the same
Right.
time,
I'm still working to get them on. I had a great conversation with them. It's a
yeah,
husband-wife team that does counseling.
yes,
One's a veteran, the other one's a clinical psychologist, but a remarkable program. I've got to pick up the pace, or I'm going to be overwhelmed by the next vet. But you mentioned several things here. I want to make sure I follow up with you to get all the links. So the fundraiser bike ride, the camp itself, of course, will have a way to get connected to you with your email and your LinkedIn account to reach out to you if they want to volunteer and happen to be in Atlanta. And if somebody wants to write a check, my God, what a remarkable
yeah.
cause.
We will,
So
and
proud that
we
this is in
we
Atlanta.
support, and there, I could say the number for what the whole weekend costs, but I will say that $50 helps, $100 helps.
Sure.
It all helps, and so I don't want to ever discourage anybody from giving, even if it's $5. So people, give their hard-earned money to
$5 a
support these
month. You sponsored
programs.
one family a year, right? $5 a
Yeah,
month. Good
yeah,
Lord, where can you do that? You can't get a
yeah,
kid's meal for that.
yeah.
Kate, we're going to do a follow-up. There's so many things I want to talk about. I love what this camp stands for. I love why it was founded. I love who you've connected to. I don't think people understand, like, just to have an expert neurologist or somebody who's great at autism or somebody who's used to dealing with somebody who's a quadriplegic or paralyzed or whatever. Each one of those becomes a very expensive, difficult thing to retain. You guys have found a way just to be an awesome place and partner with so many great organizations and people that allow you to do so much more. And it is truly, I don't know if I've ever been more proud of anything that's going on in Atlanta than hear what you guys do there. Just so
No, thank
incredible,
you.
cool to see. So great to have met you. Thank you so much
You
for coming
too.
on and talking about this. I will confirm we've got all the right links to put in the show notes, but you guys reach out to Kate, send them a check, come volunteer. If you know somebody, probably most important, if you know somebody that needs this resource, don't overlook this. Hopelessness is so close to a lot of people and sometimes a weekend away for you and your caregiver, your kids, your spouse, whoever. You don't know the difference that's going to make in somebody's life. The difference between life
I'm
and
going to
death.
say one
Go ahead.
more thing. Exactly. What you were saying is that suicidal ideation for a lot of our veterans is behind door number 2, where they can function in their everyday lives, but it's still there. And that's something that they live with and deal with. It's not the first option. It may not be the second or third option, but it's still back there. And all of these programs are designed to provide that community, to provide that support, to provide the outlet, and to
Sure.
just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bottom line is it's easy to make a difference. So go be a part of it. And this is a great, great place to put your money and your time to get involved with. So Kate, thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you at the next summit. I appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
September 8th. Yep.
Thank you for
Thank
what you
you.
do. Cheers.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Special thanks to Kate for the work you pour into Camp Twin Lakes and for the honesty you brought to this conversation, especially in describing that closing ceremony in February when, by her count, roughly 15 of the 20 families in the room said this place saved my life. Kate did not dress that moment up. She didn't need to. Here's what this episode leaves behind. Kate told us for many of the veterans she serves, suicidal ideation sits behind door number 2. They function, they work, they parent, but it's still back there. Community is not a nice extra for these families. For some of them, it's the difference between life and death. To the veterans and families that Camp Twin Lakes serves, those carrying combat trauma, brain injuries, and the weight that follows a family home, this episode exists for you. For more than 30 years, Camp Twin Lakes has been a place where kids living with serious illnesses, disabilities, and life challenges feel truly understood. Since 2009, they bring that same support and camp experience to help support the veteran and their support network. Surrounded by peers on the same journey and supported by their adaptive programs and facilities, the campers try new things, discover new strengths, and start to see themselves in a whole new way. The ask here is simple. If you're a military family, or service member anywhere in the country, look up Camp Twin Lakes and its Family Warrior Weekends. A full weekend costs the family $50, and priority goes to those who served in combat, those who endured trauma, and all women veterans. If you're near Atlanta, please go and volunteer. And if you can, give even $5 a month. Sponsors a family's weekend each year. Kate's contact information and pertinent links are in the show notes. If you know someone who could benefit from this camp, please reach out to Kate. Please share this episode to anyone it could help. Subscribe and leave us a review. It helps these stories in this episode reach the people who need them. You can reach us anytime at SeriousTalk@SeriousSolutions.com. And as always, a special thanks goes out to Jason Fowler for allowing us to use his song, Mystery Road. Kate said no one organization can heal a person or their family alone, but when a family takes that first step, camp helps them take the next one. 20 families at a time on a lake in Georgia. That next step is being taken. All right, thanks again. I'll catch you at the next briefing.